Welcome, Caesar. Good to see you again.
Hey, likewise, George. Good to see everybody as well.
Hey,
Welcome.
Caesar.
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, happy Tuesday.
Thank you.
Cool, cool. Are we live?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, welcome everybody. This is the first Career Lab Tuesday ever because we're doing it a little bit earlier because of the holiday this week and some traveling schedules. So, we last week we were talking about connecting confidently. We had a lot of people joining in with some wonderful next steps. I'm hoping that we get to hear from people. There's a few ways that you can share and join in. So if possible, we love it when you jump in on Zoom, and there's a link provided for you. If you have any questions about that, type into the comment section on LinkedIn Live or on YouTube, and we'll get that link to you there. That's preferable if you're not able to, if you're traveling, if you're at work and listening in on your break or whatever, that's fine. You can listen in on LinkedIn Live or YouTube Live. And if you have a question, type it into the comment section and Jane will get that over to us. We'll do our best to get to your questions there. So that's the few ways to participate. And any updates from last week, we had several people going into interviews. Would love to hear any responses back from that if you're listening in. Let us know how that went. I can say that one person has had their final interview and is in negotiations with a new company. And hopefully we'll get to hear a little bit about that. I know, cool stuff.
Yay, good stuff.
And I want to say again, Sally Jo, welcome back. Your second time to Career Lab, and it is a wonderful delight to have you here. And as we're getting started here, Caesar, it's been a minute since we've seen you. Good to have you on, and would love to hear from you if there's anything in particular that you're wanting support with today.
I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here, especially since it's on a Tuesday and it's a holiday week. Been trying to jump in on prior days and prior weeks, but it's been a challenge with schedules. So the topic intrigues me, so I'm all in for just kind of keeping my ear to the ground and listening, and then I'm sure something will spark, but nothing comes to mind immediately in terms of a specific opportunity or problem, but I'm all ears.
Fantastic. Well, the overarching kind of approach that we take with confidence and connecting confidently has to do with using emotions as opposed to saying that there's something wrong if I'm feeling nervous about a meeting coming up. Instead of making myself wrong about that, that it's like, no, what is the anxiety telling me? How does that inform me to prepare? How can I use that as a guide and a friend instead of saying, oh, I want to just act like I'm confident. I need to have all the right things to say. That's not, we bring in another approach into interviewing, into meetings, into your career about how you can use your emotions, your soft skills, as data instead of something wrong, something that you need to fix. So that's the high level of what we get into with connecting confidently. And Joe, welcome. Good to see you on a Tuesday.
Well, how's everybody?
Doing
Hey,
well.
Joe.
Joe, it's good to have you on. Anything that you want to check in on?
No, everything's going well over here. Almost finished with the 5-year strat plan draft to give to my board of directors, my police commission, and then hopefully in the next 2 weeks we'll have that out. And then trying to do some media damage control here today. So working through that. And then I've got, we are a shall state. We used to be a may state for a Second Amendment license to carry. So we started on Monday. I finished the chief's rules. So we're going to start issuing those permits for people to carry. The public is a little disturbed, but because it's something that's very unusual for our state. But the Supreme Court has made a decision, so we must execute. So that's where we're at. So we're going through all of that today. So how do I balance the minds of the individuals, the citizens in the realm of public safety with the Second Amendment right of individuals.
Hey, Joe, Sally Joe here.
Hi, Sally.
Hi. What part of the country are you in, and would you mind educating me on what a shall state is versus a
Sure,
may state?
we're in the state of Hawaii in the middle of the Pacific Ocean here,
Ah.
all by our lonesomes. But yeah, shall state, which means that some states always provided the Second Amendment and license to carry with citizens. But with the Supreme Court, it said we can no longer ask you for a reason why you want to be a concealed carry person, right? In our state, in 100 and something years, we've never had concealed carry. So our citizens aren't armed. I guess there's never felt the need for it. The Second Amendment does provide for it. So we allow people to own weapons in their homes. But now that I've just become the chief the last 5 months, this is now a change. So that's where we're at right now.
Thanks.
Whoa. Okay.
So people
yeah,
can carry. Yeah. Okay.
So Sally Joe, so Joe has been joining in for about a year now,
Okay.
a little over, and has been using Career Lab in the process of going for the position, got the position, and going for continued support. So,
Mm-hmm.
Joe, what are your thoughts about what you just shared of the challenge that you have? What do you think is going to be the thing that needs to happen?
So it's like I said, it's a balance between the public's fear of individuals being armed that are not law enforcement. But what they don't realize is that at any given day, there are, 2,000 federal, state, local police officers, retirees, and military members that have license to carry under federal rules. And so there are armed people out there and they don't know it. And so now you're going to have a community of civilians that aren't law enforcement trained or military trained, but could be former. Maybe they didn't go all the way through the law enforcement act that was passed by Congress years ago that allowed retirees to carry in certain states. So it's, for me, I'm okay. I mean, I grew up with guns, but there are other people here in the state that haven't. And so they're fearful of guns or more fearful of the individuals. They don't have confidence in the individuals that maybe now armed. So my thing is we're going to do, we required restrictions now. So we've added, background check, mental health check, and then ask you to take a 4-hour class on gun safety, gun laws, because we're not a stand your ground state. So Hawaii is one of the few states that you cannot argue stand your ground because we've never had people carry before. So just because somebody confronts you doesn't mean you get to pull a gun and shoot. That's not how it works here. So you have to retreat first and then shoot second. And so people need to understand the Chapter 703 of our Hawaii Revised Statute, which describes use of force, right? So how do you do that? And then gun, we want you to be able to at least hit a target under stress, right? So we ask you to go to take a shooting proficiency, much, not quite like law enforcement, but at a similar short distance, because we don't expect people shooting from 30, 40 feet away. We expect them in a close range. So we asked them to just be familiar, be able to shoot a little bit under stress. So it's a timed event. But you seek out the instructor that's certified to teach. And then you go to that course and that course of fire, and then you prove all that stuff, give it to us, and we'll give you a license to carry.
Got it. That just reminded me of the first time I ever shot. I think it probably scared me more than anybody else. So having that training being super important. So you are working on communication on a big scale with lots of people, and anything that we can do to support you in that, let us know.
Yes, so today we're doing a press conference at 11:45, and then I have a 2:30 with
Oh,
another news station. So that's kind of our outreach right now to describe um, what is coming or what I've signed on. And then, exactly what I explained to you is what I'll be talking to the media about.
Okay.
hey
A little
Joe,
bit about the history of where we're at. Yes,
what do you do to kind of internally prepare yourself when you show up for something that's kind of got high stakes, so to speak, right?
so I have a team that'll come in and prep me a little bit. So my media people and my legal advisor and some of the senior people around here will come in and talk. And we'll kind of go through what we think the media will ask question wise and then provide the information. But they kind of know who I am, and George knows I'm a very open, honest person. So if you ask me a question, I'm gonna give you what's in my heart and what I feel. And so those are the way I answer questions. So I do have some prep. I've been reading the information. I've reread some of the things over and over again. So I have at least a working knowledge of in this cranium here that has some of the information. So that's kind of how I prep. But I don't do a mock interview, which is something I think future-wise would be a good idea for significant events.
I just
Okay.
want to, acknowledge your courage. It's to be in your position is a daily dealing with the media and the general public is a big task. And so that's all. I don't think George and I work together in the same company. That's where I kind of floated in. That's why I'm being so blabby here. So.
No problem. So
Yes,
I also do, I try to do at least weekly or at least every other week or at least a few times a month. I do Rotary clubs or Lions clubs or other things just to talk to them. So I think the Civil Beat news online paper here said that I'm trying to rebuild trust one group at a time. So that's kind of what it is. Because we have some rebuilding of trust from some things that officers are accused of doing that I need to repair.
Mm-hmm.
right on.
Big work.
Joe,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. I want to set some context and also speak to everybody who's joining in. This is Career Lab Tuesday, the first one ever, so you're in the right place. And if you're wanting to join in and work with us directly, the best way to do that is on Zoom. If you're unable to, you can get your questions to us in the comment section on LinkedIn and on YouTube. I want to welcome again Sally Joe, our Director of Executive Coaching at Right Foundation. Thank you for joining us again. It's wonderful to have you and your energy. And also, I want to say a little bit now of context. We're talking about connecting confidently, and I want to underline some of the things that you just said, Joe. So when preparing for anything in terms of connecting, what I heard you say was that you're going over what you're going to be saying. You're practicing it in your head. Now, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been interviewing you interviewed for months for the position you're in. And so this is part of your process. But I want to name that. When we are feeling afraid about something, having anxiety, getting ready for an interview, a meeting, or whatever, instead of thinking that there's something wrong with that, it's better to say, okay, what are the things I most need to prepare for? And to allow myself that space to get ready for it, to practice it, to play with what we're going to be doing differently. There's a vision, Joe, that you have of what you want to do in Honolulu, and there's a vision of the man that you're becoming there, and how this position is helping you develop. And so as you're holding that context, that's your North Star. This is who I'm becoming. This position's helping me become that. Then as you're getting ready for interviews, meetings, etc., you're practicing that in your head. You're preparing for that. You're going towards that vision you've created. So I know as you're checking in, I just wanted to give that context to everybody who's joining in on here and on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. That's the overall process that we look at in your career, is how does your job help you reach your potential? And from that standpoint, we find that you have more power, more impact with people, and ultimately feel better about yourself when you're going into interviews, instead of just trying to list off all the right things that you do. You're talking about the position, you're being curious about that and how it's helping you develop. So wanted to give that overall context for everybody. I do want to hear from you, Sehar. I know I want to hear some updates, but Caesar got a question into us earlier. So Caesar, is that something that you can share with us now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate your context. And Joe, kudos to you. Talk about crucial conversations with a lot of stakeholders with, life and death at stake. So good luck with that.
Got a question into us earlier. So Caesar, is that? Oh, there we go.
I don't know what happened there, but can you guys hear me just fine?
Yep, we got you,
Yep.
Caesar.
Okay. My question is more specific to kind of a work environment. One of the things that I've noticed, and just had a meeting yesterday with one of the executive leaders at the organization I work at, I noticed that leading up to that meeting, there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and there wasn't really anything at stake outside of my brand and my reputation, because this was the first time that I was meeting with this person one-on-one. So I struggled with that. I didn't feel as comfortable as I felt, and I think a lot of it had to do with her title and her position, and just where I saw myself as a relatively newer employee. I'm trying to understand what I should do, and maybe it's in line with what you're saying, George, with just kind of visioning a little bit. But to be more specific, as I was preparing for the meeting, and it was just a 30-minute conversation, really more of an update, exchanging ideas. So it wasn't like an interview or anything like that. But one of the parts that I struggled with, was around anticipating possible questions she may ask me. I felt like going before the meeting, I was like, gosh, I don't want her to ask me a question where I have to say, I don't know. At least that's what I was telling myself. So I'm struggling with that very specifically, but just would love any general thoughts and reactions to how I can better feel more comfortable, especially with authority figures when I'm in conversations and meetings.
Whoa. Okay, that's a great question, and thank you for asking it. Part of the value that you're bringing in that is there's people listening in that I'm sure have the same question. I know I'm working that for myself. Sally Joe, is there anything that you
Same. Yeah, we all do. I just wrote something about this. Yeah. George, I'm sure you'll, as you know, like anxiety is in the same part of fear, and anxiety in the same part of your brain as excitement. I don't know if you know that, right, George? I mean,
Yep.
It's, and one of the things, just as a tip, one of the things is breathing that helps me. Box breathing. Do you know what that is? I bet you Joe knows what box breathing is, right? Yeah, to help you just to calm your what is it? Your vagal nervous system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is something like specifically to practice before going into a meeting, to help that so that your brain doesn't get hijacked by nerves when you get asked something that you might not know. And then the other thing is to be vulnerable and say, gee, I'm not really sure about that. Or right. What are you thinking, George?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious about what's going on for you when you're asked a question that you don't know.
Great question.
I feel like I'm unprepared. I feel like, so it's a little bit of self-conscious around like, oh, and I've had this happen to me before where after me, I'm like, gosh, I should have known that. I feel like in retrospect, I'm like, man, I knew that, but wasn't prepared in the moment.
Well, when you're talking with somebody, do you want them to know everything?
Not always. It depends. If I'm talking to my mechanic, I'm hoping he has answers for my questions to my car issues. I'm going through that today. But the reality is no, I guess not all the time do I expect everybody to know everything.
And yet you expect it of yourself?
Yeah, I am. I am hard on myself, no doubt about that. Specifically in situations like that where I feel like, hey, my reputation's at stake. I'm in a work environment. This is a senior leader. So yeah, I totally acknowledge that shows up for me a lot.
Tushar?
I think there is lots to do with your personal goals or personality, because many a times I have seen that people, when they meet somebody very senior or somebody who is influential, we try to make we think that we need to make the most of this opportunity to make a good impact, a positive impact. So in that moment, if we are not able to answer a question or not able to present any particular point, at that moment, that puts a pressure on us. I think it's more of our own personality, which sometimes we are good at our work, we know the subject, perhaps that topic is off the line of the agenda. It's no harm in going back and asking, saying that, okay, I need a couple of days, or I need some time to prepare for it and come back. I will revert back to you. But it's more of the self pressure that we put ourselves into.
Got it. Thank you.
What are you getting so far, Caesar?
Well, it sounds like a lot of it is just my own sort of something that I'm building on myself. Like I'm building that anxiety. Like I am, it's a lot. That's what I'm processing. Like I think if I'm more comfortable with being okay to not overperform in a meeting like this and give myself some slack, and be okay being vulnerable, back to Sally Joe's comment, then I'll probably be easier on myself and maybe even lower my expectations, or at least check them a little bit. I don't know about lowering, but just be more like, you know what, I'm just going to flow in this meeting. I'm going to see what she says and I'm going to respond to her and just be in the moment as much as possible.
Hey, do you have time to perhaps email or ask either the individual that you're meeting with or their executive assistant on what the topics are, so that you could get kind of a heads up? Those are not unusual. People do that to me all the time. If they want to come talk to me, it's usually, okay, what do you want to talk about? So that I can prepare myself as a leader so that I have all the, because I'll tell you, even as you're coming to me with a little bit of nervous and what you're going to talk to me as a leader, I have some reservations about talking to you, because I don't know what you want to ask me or talk to me about, and I want to be prepared that you don't come in with something I've never heard of before, and now I got to try to figure out. Oh, I don't know. I got to get back to you, right? So sometimes it's a two-way street. I mean, most leaders have good information above board. They know lots of things, but they don't know the depth and breadth of the knowledge of everything that's going on. And so it doesn't hurt to ask, what the topics are. Now, they may ask you something a little bit different, and that's okay. But you get prepared as well as you can, and then just go in there with a confidence and answer the questions as confidently as possible. If you don't know, you can always get back to that.
Hey, Joe, I love that. And it's because it's something like even writing to the assistant or to the person like, hey, I want to make the most of our time together. Is there anything that you'd like me to have prepared before I come in so that I can be sure that we have a great meeting? And that shows, like, just, it's kind of, an innocuous way of saying it, but it shows that you're really valuing that person's time and your own time, right? So great. Thanks for that, Joe.
Thank you.
How does that sound, Caesar?
It sounds great.
Sally, it also depends upon the company's culture, where
Yes.
the things should be appreciated. I have my own experiences where I suddenly get an email from a very senior leader without an agenda, just a time slot and a meeting room. So I ended up showing up there. But those are weird things, but those are specifically when there are quarter ending and these things. So we know what to expect, but sometimes you can't go back and ask for that question. But yes, if we get a chance, better to ask the agenda, objective of the meeting, and then prepare and go. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
And there's one more thing I want to add on to all of this approach of using your anxiety. when you're in the meeting, one of our founders, Dr. Bob Wright, has said in a variety of ways several times something like, your ignorance can be your greatest gift. And the way I've experienced that when hiring on a new person, when I was the AV tech lead, was when people came in, when they asked questions to understand what the hell we were doing, and they were upfront about not knowing stuff, it helped me think things through. It was way better than somebody coming in with answers, but somebody saying, "Oh, how come you're doing this way?" And I would respond to that, and that was I noticed that with different people coming in, that the people who served me the most were the people who asked the most questions, and the people who they didn't need to know. They didn't need to know all of the things, but their ignorance often served me. And so there may be a way for you to in the moment with when you're meeting with her, to notice, oh wait, I feel afraid I don't know this piece of it. What can I ask about that? And you might be surprised to find her say, it's a good question. I hadn't thought of it this way before. And she might get more and more clarity. I shared the story last week about somebody I was coaching in the interview process, and he came out of the meeting and said, well, I interviewed so well that I interviewed the position away. He basically asked so many questions about the spot that they realized that the position wasn't really necessary, that they needed to go back to the drawing board. And so he didn't have the job, but he had credibility with the people, and they made some introductions to somebody else. So it's that to be with the unknown is a skill. And we're all uncomfortable. Man, what was that? Dostoevsky's quote that we put out today from in the Year of More program is something like the scariest step, or the most challenging step anybody takes, is into the unknown, or something they haven't done before. And so we're all uncomfortable with this. And I think that can be helpful as big overarching context of, like, at the end of the day, none of us are 100% sure on anything, and it's together in the questions that we're probably going to be able to serve each other the best.
I think fear keeps your brain mobilized and thinking, and so because you're constantly thinking, your mind is more open, and so your RAM, that information that's piled in there, is quickly available, and it's cached in the right place, so you can grab it. If you're not fearful and you're confident, sometimes you compile and compartmentalize stuff, and then you forget. So fear is good. It's not a bad thing. Or anxiety, another word for that, fear.
Right on. Joe, I love hearing that from you. I mean, just, because we have this thing about men aren't supposed to be afraid. So I really like hearing that from you. Thank you. And back to your point, Sally Joe, at the beginning, our body processes fear and excitement the same way. So a roller coaster could be hell on earth, or it could be an exciting time.
Yeah, I do the block breathing every time I go in, even if I'm with 6 or 7 people. I always breathe through that. I think about what I'm going to say. I breathe as I'm talking, so that I'm readily available, because I don't know where the questions are always going to come from, because some of these stakeholders they come from a different perspective, and so you just do the best you can with the answers that you can give. But you got to keep, I enjoy the fear in the brain to help you just keep thinking through, and then just keep breathing. Oxygen helps the brain think better.
True.
Right on. All right. Well, Cesar, are we good to move on?
Yeah. Is it block breathing? Is that something I could YouTube or just learn about? BLOCK?
There's a couple: box breathing, block breathing, square breathing.
Okay.
I've always done it where you're breathing in, like picture your computer screen, and you breathe in 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold 4. Joe, how did you learn it?
Yeah, I learned that way. And then another one I learned was 3 seconds in, 3 seconds breathing, 3 seconds hold, 3 seconds exhale, and then just start it over again.
Right.
With no pause in the middle. But
Right.
I prefer the block because you get a chance to just, your brain stops. You're thinking about what you have to physically think about stopping breathing, holding it, and then continue breathing. And so your brain is constantly moving. And so there's information flow, synapses are firing. And so that helps your brain to keep, I guess, massaging the brain so it's working properly.
And you can just focus on something that looks like a square, or picture a square in your mind. You can do it a rectangle, but square, just that helps you just, right, like take off. Or you can also, how you can look for red things in the room, or you're trying to take your attention off of what's hijacking your brain, right? So you start looking for, red items or something. Does that make sense? Have you ever heard of that, George, or anybody, where you're trying to change your attention while you're calming yourself down? I might have just
sometimes if you're looking at people and their faces, or you're not sure what face they're making while you're talking, and some people might be dozing off, then you got to kind of, okay, let me focus on a corner of the room that makes it look like I'm looking at everybody, but I'm not, so that I don't get distracted by the person. And then you got to change inflection, voice pattern, and maybe, just stop talking altogether and go to another question, because you yourself got to make sure you're not in a rhythm of just talking at one set pace all the time. You have to keep that inflection and show passion in what you're, even if it's a one-on-one meeting, if you're answering a question, show some passion behind that from your heart. What I tell policemen is stop following policies based on what you think it says. Follow with your heart first, and then your brain second, and you'll always be right.
Whoa.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Well, that's
Whoa,
connecting
whoa.
confidently right there, right?
So we're a profession, so we got to be confident. We got to understand our jobs, and it's going to be a task to get all these officers to focus on that. But that's my goal the next 4 years, 8 months, and 5 days. But who's counting?
I really like what you said there, Joe, about connecting with the heart first. There's different personality styles. And so even we're speaking English here, and yet each one of us has kind of this other language that we speak. And if we are speaking with our emotional intelligence, that transcends languages, that transcends personality styles. And if I'm just speaking from data points, that will only work with a certain group of people, like people who are like me in that regard. So I think that's really cool what you're saying. Well, sweet. Good stuff here. So I want to reset the room for everybody who's joining in on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. This is Career Lab Tuesday, our first one ever, as we're getting ready for the holiday week. There's a few ways you can participate. We love it when you jump in directly on Zoom. Can work with us one-to-one this way. If you can't, you can always type questions into the chat. As we're saying this, I do want to tee you up, Sahar, and see what you have to update us on from last week.
All right. Yeah, I did have an interview right after Career Lab last week. I'm alive, so I came out alive. I'm here. It went well overall. There was like 2 questions that I feel like I don't know if they disqualified me for the position, but there were 2 questions that I didn't have as much experience in. So that's probably what I want to talk about today, just to kind of get feedback or opinions on it. So one of the questions was about leading or working with a global team. And while I do work with people in other countries, or actually it was about working on a global project, having an example of that. And I actually haven't really worked on a global project. So, after thinking about it for a little bit, I just said, no, I don't have, I haven't done that. And the interviewer's response was, it was okay. I mean, I couldn't really tell, it was pretty neutral. And then the other question was about having direct reports, because this position would have 5 direct reports. And I did talk about a previous job where I had 1 direct report, but I don't think that the interviewer was satisfied with my answer there, because he kind of emphasized the big part of the role is being able to kind of develop your direct reports, and kind of making sure that you're a leader for the team and so forth. So I wasn't necessarily 100% satisfied with my answer to that. And I think part of the reason why I struggle with that question sometimes is because I don't think I did a very good job when I did have a direct report in that past job. So I don't really reference it that often, and I kind of tend to minimize it because I don't think that it was my best work, I would say, when I did have the opportunity. And I struggle because I haven't really had that opportunity again to like lead a team or have direct reports. So when any position comes up that I interview for that involves leading a team, I definitely struggle with, demonstrating my experience and ability to handle that. So that's where I'm at right now. I think I'm, at the level where I would want to jump to that next in my next role, but I don't have the experience, or I don't know how to talk about my experience in the right way to be able to make the interviewer feel comfortable with hiring me for that role. And there is going to be a second, there is going to be like an interview panel. So I don't know yet whether I made it to the next round, but there's still time, because the interviewer mentioned that they won't be doing that until like the end of the month. So I imagine I'll know like by next week whether I made it to the next round or not.
Did you have an opportunity to follow up with them by email or anything?
No, I usually send thank you emails, but in this case I didn't, just because I don't know, I just ran out of time and I just didn't do it. But I haven't followed up with him over email yet. It's just been like a week.
Up
Yeah.
that you have done something really well with your direct report position where you had a direct report. There's some things that you did well, and that there are things you wish you had done differently. And that's something I would admire as an interviewer. I don't know about you, George, where you learned from something and built on it and did better next time, or see yourself in a different, at a different level now,
So what I'm hearing is what is it that you want from the position? And none of us do things perfectly, right? There's always ways that we can be improving. And to what Sally Jo is saying is how does that fit in with this position? Is this an area that you are wanting to develop, that you have experience in? You've had a direct report before, but that it was not exactly tied to, that didn't seem like the best thing for you to share with this. So what would be the best thing for you to share with having 5 direct reports? What are you doing right now that's moving you in that direction?
Yeah, it's tough because I do have leadership over teams of more like contractors or consultants. So I did talk about that, but I don't know if I kind of emphasize the skills that I've built from that I could relate to this position.
And I don't know if this is true. I'm just going to spitball some stuff, and you tell me where I'm off. What's helpful, what's not. But something like, so I work with consultants, and people report to me around this stuff. I would be stoked, or maybe not stoked, but that's my OC lingo coming in.
I was gonna say.
I'm looking. I'd like to develop myself as a leader with teams where I get to really benefit from seeing them grow and not having them just go off somewhere else, where I get the satisfaction of having a team that I get to work with ongoingly. This is something that's important to me as I'm, developing myself. Here are the results I've had with people, for 6-month project, year-long project, but I'm really interested in taking this to the next level and having more of an ongoing team. How does that kind of land?
That sounds great. Yeah. I think I did talk about how, I'm passionate about being like a career mentor to other people. And that's part of what interested me in the role, is that it would allow me to really have a direct impact on other people's careers. I didn't say I'm phrasing it much better now than I did in the interview, but I think in the context of an interview, sometimes the anxiety and fears that we were talking about earlier
Right.
can get in the way of what we actually want to say. So, but yeah, I think what you said now, George, is a great way to phrase it going forward. If I am
And-
asked that question again, if I make it to the interview panel, which I am 75% confident that I might, I might make it, that I'm definitely going to be asked this question again. So I have to be prepared for that with a better answer.
And the other thing to be looking at is how so the interviews can really be for you,
Yeah.
that you're sussing out if this is something you want.
Yep.
And you're getting more clarity about who you are and what ignites you through this process. So I just learned something more about you that I didn't know before, which is that you do want direct reports. You want more of that ongoing relationship. And so now as you're doing that, you can start to look at the ways that you have helped people develop and perhaps in ways that you hadn't recognized for yourself before. I don't know, but I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe as you're looking back over the past few years, you can say, oh, you know what? I do have this, and this skills. Like people have told me, wow, if it wasn't for you, I don't know that I would have had this understanding or whatever it is. I don't know what that stuff is, but you can start to pay attention to what your gifts are. A lot of times people aren't aware of what their gifts are. A lot of times you might be great at stuff and have no idea if you're not consciously, intentionally seeking that out, seeking that feedback out and learning how to talk about yourself that way.
That's a good point. I don't think I've sought that feedback out from, past people that I've mentored or helped.
What I love about how George is framing this too is that this is really, it's like you having a vision for yourself as a leader, and this position is one way, one place to do that. If it's not this one, it'll be another one, versus like trying to please an interviewer or trying to get the job. It's more empowered, like you're creating creating a position for yourself, and that hopefully this is one you can step into where it's win-win, and you're not twisting yourself into a pretzel to please a person sitting across the table from you. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I think it is as much about me interviewing them as well to see if I would want to work for them.
Yeah, to see if you're a good
having
fit.
yeah, I mean, also your boss determines a lot of your happiness at work. So yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
how about going back to the team saying that thanks for the interview and thanks for the opportunity and everything, and reiterating this point about what in that particular role excites you specifically with the people management, and what's your view on that? I think I would not lose that opportunity, because if that's going to add to another 15-20 points of your confidence of getting to the next level, why to keep anything untouched?
Yeah, give yourself as many opportunities to have them remember you. And we're all piling on you here, but I would I would
Do you think it's
say.
too late? Do you think it's too late if it's a week
No.
later?
No,
Okay,
no,
okay.
no.
No,
Hey,
no,
I've had
no.
a few days.
I
I've
felt
had a
bad
few
because I
days to think.
usually do it in 24 hours, and then once that had passed, I was like, oh, it's too late now.
Well, I've been really thinking about this for the past few days, and I'm even more excited than before. And this is how, some version of that,
Okay.
this is
Yeah.
how this
Definitely.
is what I see would be possible in this position, for me to right, George, like something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A key thing here, and this fits into, Sahar, can I talk about you a little bit in terms of the past month and since we met and the development?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that Sally Joe's underlining here and Tashar is that you taking responsibility, your ability to respond, you have the ability to respond to this situation, and that makes you more visible, and it lets people know that you're moving. It lets people know that you're responding, you're taking responsibility for what you can where you can. Now, as somebody in the position of hiring, I've got my job, plus I'm hiring, and there's all these to-dos, there's a whirl, I've got way too many freaking emails. And if I just get a quick email from somebody that I met last week that says, hey, looking forward, it's just I don't have to do anything with it. I don't have to respond if I don't want to, but it's just so you don't want to put any pressure on me in that way, but you're just putting yourself there. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's showing me that you care and that you're responding.
And that you're
Yeah.
a leader, that you're leading, from the best of yourself, versus hoping someone will give you direction. It's a more empowered,
Mm.
expansive.
And another
approach.
thing is we as human beings, we kind of suck at knowing what's going to make us happy. There's all kinds of research on this, and we're pretty bad at assessing what our next steps are to really bring us deeper satisfaction. There's all kinds of happiness studies that underline this. So in that context, when we first started connecting, look at where you're at now in terms of how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your future, and where you were a month ago. And notice the difference. Notice the difference in your energy and your beliefs, your belief system, and how you're experiencing the world around you. Do you notice a shift?
I think so, a little bit. I think I have a little bit more confidence, and I think that last time I talked about how I've had quite a few rejections for roles that I've interviewed for internally, and that's kind of sometimes weighs on me. But I think just getting the opportunity to interview, it's given me a little bit more confidence that I've had before. So yeah.
One of the things that happens is that, as we've been seeing in this career lab and over time, is as you engage and have intention with doing things differently and having this vision of, what, one of the things we talked about was, I'm going to enjoy myself more in the interview. It's going to be less and less about me performing and more about me. And if I can come out of an interview and be like, here's what I did well, here's what I didn't do so well, and I can be present with that's going to be more satisfying. And so you're engaging, you're not sitting back and kind of waiting as much, and you're responding more. So in our core kind of model that we have in our trainings is yearning, engaging, revelating or revealing more, liberating, rematrixing, dedicating. I don't want to, the four at the end is probably too confusing, but it's interesting that what really brings transformation and change is yearning and engaging. So you're in the process of engaging right now with interviews, jumping on here, connecting more. You're getting more data for yourself, and you're getting more data about what you really care about. So you're starting to learn more about your yearnings. And that goes into the emotional intelligence realm of this language that it's a universal language. And the more that you are developing that in yourself, your self-awareness, your presence, then every moment that you're with somebody in an interview, there's more of you showing up. They have more of a feel of you. And even if it's not the right position or any of that, you're getting more sense of you, and that is meaningful.
100%. And you,
Yeah, as you go through the
came,
process.
go ahead.
I was going to say, you learn more about yourself and what you want as you go through the process.
Yes, instead of sitting back and waiting for the right thing, which doesn't happen. There's no such thing as the right one.
Also, you came alive, I noticed, when you talked about leading contractors and what went well and what you were longing for is that you really want a team that all works on for the same company, right? Versus, versus people that kind of do projects and then go off. You're looking for leading a cohesive team, and you could feel, right? I mean, did everybody see you just came alive when you talked about your yearning for that? And so, that's noticeable. I was like, I sat forward when you did that. I was, oh, great.
It's a good observation.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. And sometimes just being able to hear that from somebody else, to know, 'cause you can't see yourself. So it's important that Sally sees you do that. It's like, oh, getting that is important to know, to be able to see myself through somebody else's eyes.
Yeah, which strengthens the connection and the confidence that you feel in that connection. Hence, connecting confidently.
Bam! Beautiful. Well, we have a little bit of time left, and I do want to get you into Shar about networking beyond the existing companies. So quick room reset for everybody. This is Career Lab Tuesday. If you can jump in directly on here, that's awesome. If not, type your questions into the comment section on LinkedIn and YouTube. But Tushar, tell us about getting into extending your network beyond your existing contacts.
So, George, I think I will just, for everybody's benefit, I will just give a background. I've got 22 years of experience and 18 years with the same company. So moved different roles, different geographies, continents within the same company. And now that I'm in Canada looking for the role, I realize that my network is either within the same company. I work for Ingersoll Rand. So within the Ingersoll Rand or within the group of the Ingersoll Rand or Rotary equipment companies. So if I want to try and look at something different, I'm finding it difficult to network, to know the contacts at a bit senior level in the leadership team. So that's where I think somewhere or the other, whenever I'm working on, I think I'm reaching the wall right now. I'm facing the wall right now. What do I do next? And that's where I get slowed down. That's my biggest challenge. I'm confident that if I'm with someone, I'm facing someone, be it interview or social networking or getting to know someone, I can make an impact. But my challenge is to be there or to open the door or to network with the right people. That's my challenge.
Outside of your company.
Outside of my network, outside of the company and outside of my current network. And my current network, because I worked in the same company, I didn't make efforts to expand my network. And again, one more angle to it. I worked in India, Middle East, and Europe. I'm in North America now. So all my network of more than 500 people is within those regions. I have a lot of network here, but those are all the same company or people who have left the company now. So a limited network here, I would put it this way. That's my challenge right now.
Okay.
What's your LinkedIn mojo, Tushar? Just curious.
Sorry?
Your LinkedIn, like how's your LinkedIn presence, mojo?
Not much. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm not saying completely absent, but not very active. I don't like to post just for the sake of posting it. I done it, but couple of times people take somebody else's post and repost it with 2 comments and 3 comments. I think that's superficial. That's not natural. That's not natural way of presenting the things. But yes, and people have advised me to go and work around personal branding a lot on LinkedIn.
That, and I'm thinking too, this is a little fixing, not coaching, just, PS, but I'm thinking if you have people in the positions or the companies that you're interested in, you look for those and then send them a personal message, a direct message. Hey, we're in the same industry, or I'm looking, could we have a virtual coffee? Like that sort of thing. Where you could start doing that in the positions. What do you think, George? Something
Absolutely.
very specific like that. We can
Sally,
help
the
you with.
strike
We can help you with that.
The strike rate with that has been very poor. I would put it this way. I'm doing it, specifically. I worked in Ingolstadt for compressors. It was rotating equipment. So partially with the pumps and other companies, the target list that I prepared. So I'm reaching out to people, pulling out the company profile on the LinkedIn, and for North America sales leadership or CEO at that level, I'm trying to reach out to people. The strike rate has been very little. I would say less than 15,
The
20%.
what?
The strike
Strike
rate.
rate, in the sense, if I'm sending it to 10 people, max to max, I'm able to get communication back from 2 or 3 people maximum.
2 out of 10? That's awesome. In sales, that's great. Right?
Yeah, you're saying 2 out of 10 is bad?
I feel so.
No, 10.
No.
You gotta do 10 reach outs for every one, right, George?
No,
Every-
yeah,
At
that's
least. At least.
that's good.
That's pretty good. We'll
Definitely.
we'll
2 out
talk
of
to
10
you.
is-
But
How
there's
how
probably-
long does it take you to do that?
So 20, I would say I've been like George, when I spoke to you first, that was my first week. This is my 3rd week practically looking out and starting to network with people.
Okay, so no, there's a few things here. So you're in a sales position now, which is you selling you.
Yes.
But you have a job, you have a new job you've never had before.
Yes.
Yes.
So
And
George
it's
and I
all
are going to
about
get in
you.
your face and throttle you.
And so this is with you identifying the companies that you're interested in and you reaching out on LinkedIn. Some people barely check LinkedIn. They might not get back to you for a while. You might actually need to look in the company and see if there's somebody else in there that might make the introduction to the person you would want. You need to look at the company and say, okay, what's the need that they have? Why would they hire me? What are they working on? What problems do they have? And who is the person in that company that like me getting hired there would make their life easier? And look at things that way. Just be strategic that way with your reach outs. It doesn't take long on LinkedIn. You don't need to send a long message.
But probably having a really well-crafted short little invite in the would you be willing to, but we could help you with that.
Yeah.
How to sound like there's a value that you're going to provide as well. You're not just
Yes.
taking
Get your point.
some version of that.
And,
My pitch-
you're
my
going to
pitch-
do a bunch of these, and we got to start wrapping up here.
Oh, whoops, we're blabbing. Yes.
Yes. So Tushar, you and I connected. I think you should connect with Sally Joe and
Okay.
take this to the next level. Does it sound good?
We'll do that. Sally.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good.
We have some ideas for you, and
Yeah.
yeah.
The other thing I want to say before dropping off here is what I want everybody to know is that you can set up a time to talk with me, 15 minutes. I'll give you as much value as I can in that time. If you want more, we can set up the next stages there. So thank you, Jane, for throwing my calendar in there. That's for anybody who's viewing it on LinkedIn Live and YouTube as well. Take advantage of that. I love meeting with people and serving. So want to make sure you know there's a next step from this. This is Career Lab Tuesday, first time ever. We will be back next week, Career Lab Wednesday. Reminder to everybody, our goal is to serve you in your career. There's no question too big, no question too small. You can join in. It serves everybody to hear what you're working on. There's lots of other people, and it's good to have this connection. We started this whole thing when pandemic hit, and we were like, geez, let's get connection going and support for people in their careers. So thank you everybody for joining in, and have a wonderful time of giving thanks in your lives. And thank you for sharing yourselves and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.